Welcome to another edition of the Show with No Name. This one for Friday, February 24th, 2012. I'm Bob Going with Gavin Murdoch and Jim Nicosia and Michael Chayera, and we'll be right back after this word from our sponsor. Oh, we don't have a sponsor. Anyway, we're at the Go Where I've Been Coffee House and the Polish Deli on Lower Upper Church Street, right here in Amsterdam, New York, and I guess that's it for the show today. All right. Wow, a number of things have happened. Pick up the paper this morning and see that Amsterdam Town Supervisor Thomas de Meza has bolted the party of his career, the Democratic Party, and is now a Republican, presumably so he can run for an assembly seat.
That's been the rumor for several years, that he was going to switch parties.
Yeah. I guess it happens when it's convenient, and this appears to be convenient. Actually, the better time to have done it was last year, because now he actually needs the permission of the party to run, because if he wants to run as a Republican. But it sounded like he was welcomed with open arms by the chairman, so maybe they'll just
make a deal.
So this sets up a lot of fascinating possibilities. I've heard that Ann Thane is very serious about wanting the Democratic nomination. Tom Quackenbush is very seriously talking about running for the Republican nomination, and that could set off a primary between two sitting supervisors and who knows who else.
And the next mayor.
Wow. What?
And the next mayor. Ex-mayor.
Well, I would think that the ex-mayor is either going to be supporting de Meza or himself, and that both of them would not be in the primary.
And then the deal would be that one of them would go for the assembly seat and the other one would go for the county chairmanship.
Well, one of them is the county chairman.
Yeah, but if he's to run and they decide that he's going to run for the
and then they would put the guy who's still a Democrat in as a Republican chairman. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying.
Wow.
Many possibilities.
Sounds like the far side of the dark side.
And you know what? Personally, I don't trust any of them.
Wow. Is that what you're hearing? Really?
Yeah, that's all I know.
Well, that's not what I'm hearing. That's what I'm thinking.
That's what you're it's all speculation. So it appears that de Meza would be the Bea Party candidate in that race, and I have to assume that Quackenbush would not be the Bea Party candidate, since.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Fascinating. And I think.
But you know what? The thing that I question is all the time that Tom de Meza was the town supervisor, all the time that he is the town, he always has gone against the city of Amsterdam, which for years was run by the Republicans,
right.
And he fought them tooth and nail all along the line.
Meaning you?
Yes.
Yeah. Right.
And but now he wants the Republican endorsement.
So does that mean he's going to be fighting for the city of Amsterdam?
All of a sudden he will be.
All of a sudden, hopefully, he would. But I doubt it.
Wow.
The possibilities are endless.
Yeah.
And of course, the other question is, the district, we don't know where the lines are going to be, but it's presumably going to be larger than the city of Amsterdam and the town of Amsterdam and the county of Montgomery.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe somebody down Rotterdam way might be interested, for example, where there's a big population.
Well, they've got a couple of people already down there that said they're interested, right? Santa Barbara and someone else down there, Valeno.
I didn't catch the other name you mentioned.
And we don't know who's going to be running for the Senate. I mean, apparently, obviously Amador is, or there wouldn't even be talk about the assembly race. Supposedly Amador's behind de Meza. because de Meza backed him across parties to endorse him.
I don't know.
Oh, that's what I hear.
Oh, that's what you hear.
Yeah,
Well, I hear
I'm not just making this up. I heard it.
Somebody else made it up.
Yeah, but I heard that just the opposite. I heard that Amador was endorsing Joe Emanuel.
Well, as I say, there's not going to be Joe Emanuel and Tom de Meza. If Tom de Meza is running, it's with Joe Emanuel's blessing, or not at all. Because frankly, he can't run without Joe Emanuel's blessing. Period.
Exactly.
He has to have the approval of the committee.
He's in charge of the
Unless he
committee.
wants to run a
Right.
primary against him.
No, he can't. That's what I'm saying. He can't because he's not a Republican yet. So he can't even circulate petitions, except as a notary. He cannot submit petitions without the authority of the Republican Party allowing him to. You see?
Yeah, because he doesn't become an official Republican until the election.
After the election.
Is it the election day or after the
Yeah, well, it's after election day. Yeah. Yeah.
So there'll be a little back rooming going on over the next couple of months to get it
Oh, yes.
everything lined
Well,
up.
I think that's got to already be lined up, or we're
That's already
talking
been
about
done. That's already been done.
it. Wow.
That's already been done.
So, let's see. So,
Who's the boss of that house?
now, what do you think? Quackenbush versus de Meza in a Republican primary? Right. Let's just talk about Montgomery County, because we have no idea what the rest of the district is
Yeah.
going to do.
Oh, man, oh, man, oh, man.
Well, Quackenbush, he wanted to be the Republican chairman a few years back against Koppel,
Right?
and he lost that battle.
Wow.
You know that story, right?
Yeah, I was there.
Yeah.
He was urged by someone to run who shall remain nameless, and after his name has been put in nomination, the person who urged him to run gets up and endorses the other one.
Sorry.
Montgomery County.
It's an incredible place. It's an incredible place. All right. Well, Recorder's working on a story which they asked me to actually bring up with you guys. Here he comes. Here comes Boss Stark. You know, never mind. We'll get to the Recorder later.
We'll get the word from the horse.
Wow. Look at him glad handing everybody here. Oh, he's going to kiss the babies and everything. This is unbelievable.
Oh, he's running for something.
Unbelievable. Jeffrey, come on over. Join the show. He's got to get his coffee first. All right. Okay, so the story the Recorder's working on is where is downtown? And where is downtown in the future?
You know what? I've had this discussion with my family over the dinner table many times.
152.
The downtown
How's things going? Good.
is not going to come back unless they can get shops downtown that are specialized that you can't find in the malls.
Right. Well, you know, here's what first of all, the answer is, and we've said this before, the answer is downtown is on Route 30, and it has been for some time now.
Yes.
That's where all the shopping is. Because your question is, where is the shopping district when you're saying where is downtown? And so you can define what historic downtown is or was, and there are still some buildings left from historic downtown. And I think you're right. It can serve a niche, but it's not going to be downtown. It's going to be a
Shopping destination.
destination.
Mr. Stark, how are you, sir?
All right. We should disclose that Boss Stark and Mr. Murdoch are what, second cousins, first cousins once removed, or something like that.
We're on the same food chain.
Yeah.
We're right on the same food chain. Well, Jeffrey Stark, welcome, second ward supervisor. Got to move in a little closer. I got to. Let me put the wide angle lens.
Get a wide angle lens.
Yeah,
Vincent?
Okay.
Yeah, he's working.
That's good.
He's working on a fellowship. That's good.
All right. So what's going on at the board? We want your as the boss of the City Democratic Party.
Yeah.
What's your reaction to the morning news that one of your fellow supervisors, who had been a member of your party for a long time, is bolted to the dark side?
What was that?
Mr. DeMeza. Didn't you hear that?
What did he do?
He's decided to become a Republican and run for the assembly.
He was a Democrat? I'm sorry. He'll be much happier there,
Right.
and thank God it's America. Good luck.
The Republicans won't be happy.
Oh,
Well, he was welcomed with open arms.
Open
They just told you
Yeah,
that.
well, that's only one person's open arms.
I think that's a good move for him. He's long supported the GOP, and he's long supported the GOP. I think that's a good move for him.
Well, is he
He'll be happier
Is he
there.
support of the GOP or the Baya Party? I mean, they're not necessarily the same thing. I know as a Democratic boss, you're going to say they are, but some of us don't feel that way.
I don't say anything like that. I mean, you kind of know the family I come from.
His uncle Louis Sandy, great uncle, right? Yeah,
My great uncle, yeah.
great uncle Louis
Grandmother's
Sandy
brother.
was the supervisor of the 5th Ward for 30 years, something like
I
that.
think he had the record.
He died with his boots
27
on, right?
27 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was one of those people. They used to say there were 4 or 5 families on the South Side that always voted in blocks. And the question wasn't how many votes are you going to get in this district? The question was who's got this family and who's got that family. And at one time, Pooch Baldine, who is your cousin, right, Anthony Baldine, was also the supervisor of the 5th Ward, and he was telling me about Uncle Louis, his Uncle Louis, and he said that
Hold on, I got
Louis controlled 438 votes in the extended Sandy family,
Thanks for keeping me on track.
and every one of them voted in lockstep. Louis said, "This is how you vote." There were 438 votes.
He had a very good base. Had a great base. And of course, he also had a lot of crossover votes because, as I remember, I was young, of course, when my uncle died, but I had great respect for him. Being a supervisor, honestly, is something I've always wanted to do because of Sandy Brothers Golf Station. I would hang around there when I was a kid, and people would come. And my uncle would come out of the pit all full of grease, and somebody would tell them what they needed, how he could help them. And I don't remember him ever saying, you have to go down and switch parties, or I can't help you because you're not a Democrat. He helped you regardless. And so he was able to have a great base and enjoy a lot of support. And I think more than half of those years he had no competition.
I
at
don't
all.
remember him ever having competition.
No, he did. There were some great rivals. I think Jimmy D'Alessandro was the Democratic family at the time on the south side.
Well, Jimmy took his place, but I don't know that he ever ran against him.
I
did
don't
he?
know. I can't remember who ran against them because I remember as young as 13 years old going out and putting up signs for him in windows and stuff.
By
So
the way, when I said the 438 votes, those were family votes. I'm not talking about his friends and stuff. I'm talking about just
the family.
the extended family. This one married that one, and when you marry that one, you take all of them with you. And
I grew up pretty conservative. I
I see
ran on the conservative line with you.
That's right. That's
And
right.
I was a Republican. The day a funny story. The day I turned 18 years old, I walked into the garage, and my Uncle Louis had my registration form all filled out. And all I needed to do was sign it, and he took it up to Fonda the next day. So but I've gotten older, and I've become much more moderate, and so that's where I'm at. And as you can see, on the other line, the other lineage that we commonly come from, it seems that there's some.
Well, you're
type
still
of
like
conservative-
just about the only Democrat in your family, right?
me and my son Joseph.
Yeah.
My son Vincent's a Republican. My wife is a card-carrying Republican from Long Island, and my daughter and my other daughter is probably just as conservative as you.
All right.
So, so it's interesting conversations in my house around the dinner table.
I'm sure.
I got some communists in my family too, so it works both ways.
Well, you mentioned Governor Rockefeller, who I consider the greatest Democratic governor ever.
Yeah, you're probably right about that. Yeah, this is. 50th anniversary of the founding of the Conservative Party, which was founded during Rockefeller's first term, because he was so bad from their point of view that they went out. So you're right. He might as well have been a Democrat. So anyway, let's get to some real nitty-gritty stuff. And what's going on in the Board of Supervisors these days? Your name's in the paper about the insurance trust or whatever it is, or the insurance quasi-trust, or the quasi-insurance trust.
Well, there was a resolution.
Just give us a background of the issue here.
Well, there was a resolution last month by Supervisor Stagliano to dissolve the trust, with some question whether it's a trust or not, and basically to scuttle everything that they've worked on for 5 years. And I worked the supervisors for the whole month to get them to table that. My position was, you guys have 5 years of experience at this. Mike Chiara and I just got here, and you expect us 3 weeks later to vote on something that we have no knowledge of. I've never seen the contracts. And so there were a lot of things said. And some of them are misconceptions. One they said was that these trusts, nobody ever seen the documents and nobody would give them to them. So I'm kind of inquisitive, so I went out and asked for them. And within 10 days, I got every contract there was. Well, that kind of put me like, Dominic, what are you telling me here? You mean to tell me that in 2 years, you guys been asking for contracts and you never got them, but yet I asked for them. Maybe I must have said the word please or something. Everybody gave them to me.
Well, maybe it's because you're Boss Stark.
That could be. As you like to call me. So that was first led me to believe that, that not all things that people are saying are exactly alike. I don't say people are lying. I'm just saying that's their conception. So then, as you know, I sit on a trust in New York City. Our trust is worth $387 million.
And that's your union or a joint union?
Yeah, it's a Taft-Hartley fund in New York City for our district council. And we have 16 employers.
That covers a lot of different unions.
No, it covers just the painters.
Oh, just the painters union.
Oh, yeah, that's only half of the state.
Okay.
Remember, we have 11,000 members that we're administering.
And the trust is how big, did you say?
I have assets of $387 million.
Okay, so you're familiar with the
we have health insurance.
Certain aspects of this.
Our health insurance is self-insured. We have 7,900 members that we insure. So, and I just got back from International Foundation School back in October, where under the Taft-Hartley laws, under the USDOL laws, you actually have to take so many classes per year to get your certification to be a trustee. Because when you're a trustee on any fund, especially Taft-Hartley's, you have fiduciary responsibility, and you're personally liable to your membership. So, if I mess up, or I give out a bad contract and we lose money, our members can sue us personally and pretty much take everything you have, which is why we have not a lot of people want to be trustees, and because there's not a lot of benefits. You can't be paid. If you go on a trip, basically you can't even drink alcohol. They don't give you a lot of money. So they're very tightly regulated. Despite what people think about unions, the USDOL It's one of the highly regulated industries in the country, and everything has to be disclosed. In fact, you can go online and find out any officer, look up their 5500 forms. You can find out how much they're making, what their annual salary is, and what they're spending in their union. So it's unlike business or county government.
But you think county government would have to have that information available
What's the
too?
criteria to be a trust, to have a trust?
Well, it depends on what kind of trust you're talking about. Ours is a 503C trust under Taft-Hartley. That's different than what the county's talking about. An Article 47 trust is a trust that's federally regulated. You would have at least 5 entities and at least 2,000 members in the trust. Then there's an Article 44. That's a state trust. It has less oversight. It's easier to form. That's what, once they started going for the Article 47, they soon found they couldn't do that. So they tried for a 44, but by that time, I made a statement at a board meeting last week I can't find 3 supervisors at any given time that actually trust each other. And so, and they shift every week. I mean, I could talk to you and you're okay, and 3 days later we go to the board meeting and you vote the opposite way. I mean, it's...
Who got him last? Yep.
Again, it's America. You're free to change your mind. But it goes back to this trust, and now we have something that's something else, and it's really a consortium, a buying consortium. And that is a legal entity. All right, people say, well, it's not a legal entity. It does exist. You tried for it. There's certain rules that you can't do, like you can't have reserve funds that we do, but something exists.
There's at least an agreement among a couple of entities, the city and the county.
It's an agreement. They're in further of its agreement, and that's not really the issue. I think some of the Board of Supervisors, the real issues, they don't think there was enough transparency, and the people that were the trustees that they appointed, I don't think did a good job in the form of the board. But more importantly, I think this goes back to having part-time people. They have jobs, they have their own lives. It sounds good. Somebody makes a presentation, they vote on it, and they kind of forget about it. And then now there's really questions about contracts. And I don't think I don't think that most of the supervisors put in a lot of work getting the contracts and then reading the contracts and understanding them. So now certain issues have come to light. And again, I want to make this perfectly clear. Every one of these people that the trustees on the board, Tom DeMezza, Barone, even our broker, Patsy Bea, I've known these people all my life. I don't believe they're thieves. I don't believe that they went out and did something purposely to line their pockets. What I think is they had a trust that they tried, it failed, and they entered into contracts that have terms that are not exactly the most favorable in the industry. So the industry...
That sounded like it was very subtle, Jeff, but it's really... They're extremely not favorable as compared to the rest of the industry.
Well, again, I have no basis. Again, their claim is they saved $1 million by entering into these contracts. But if you really look into it, there was a study done by an outside agency that I don't know who paid for. And they came back with bid proposals. And how they gauged the savings of the $1 million was this guy over here was $1 million higher than this one, so we took this one. Well, if I was writing a term paper for college, that would be called bias because there's no scientific measurement to put it there. So I'm saying...
But what they're not saying is that...
what it is to the rest of the industry.
If they never had the consortium to begin with, it wouldn't have cost the county taxpayers $1 million more. right?
Or I don't know. Again,
Are we getting our bang for our buck? No.
I don't think so.
That's what matters.
My thing is, and I made this statement at the county committee meeting last week, is I believe that we're at least paying $200,000 more. Some people don't think that's a lot of money in the scheme of $90 million, $93 million. I do when we're faced with a 2% tax cap.
Yeah, if you're talking about laying off 50 employees, $200,000 covers a lot of that.
I've got a question. They have Benetech and they have benefits. The city and the county are paying a commission to Benetech and to benefits.
Well, there's a Benetech contract and a Benetech marketing LLC. Those are right. They have an exclusive agreement between themselves. So
That's just
Patsy Bea is Benetech management. Benetech is Benetech, a man named John Panisi. And Benetech is a well-respected company. They have, I think, placed in most of the counties too. I actually think the town of Glen, Mr. Conningen's area, and I think Strevey, and they have Schenectady, and they have some of the up-county insurances, and I believe that I heard at one time that they write about $187 million worth of contracts a year.
They have the Full Mountain Health Trust for the school districts in Fort Montgomery and Hamilton County too.
And they provide a service, and usually their fees in other counties and other municipalities are lower than what's in ours. The reason for that, I do not know. They could be doing more services. I haven't gone out and grabbed other people's documents because, quite frankly, we got 8 contracts, and it took me 3 weeks to between getting the contracts, breaking them apart, looking at the fees, and I'll tell you how I did it, because I'm really not that smart, or nor do I have that time.
He's from the other branch of the family, guy.
He is in there. Yes, I'm on the Democratic. The Republican side of conservatives know everything.
Thin gene pool.
Yes, but I happened to be in New York a few weeks ago at a trustee meeting, and we have several trust attorneys that are on. And one of them, my friend, and I brought the contracts and I dumped them on his desk, and I went, "Could you please take a look at these? Tell me what you think of them, if they're within the norms, and so
eye-opening, right?
and I said, I'll be in the building all day, and if you get anything today, if not, don't worry about the copies. Got all of it." 20 minutes later, I got a text on my phone. Our building in New York City, by the way, is 5 stories high, all right, and our funds are on the top 2 floors. And I went up there, and he basically said to me, "Do you realize that your retirees are in your plan? They're not in an Advantage plan." And I went, "No, I didn't realize that." He goes, "That's like ludicrous. Nobody does that." I says, "Well," I did kind of know, and I heard that a couple of years ago they were in Advantage and they moved them out of Advantage back into the plan." And he really expressed a lot of concern over that. Like, why would anybody do that? Because we know that the premium for Advantage plans are probably $300 to $400 a month per person, and
Not even 2.
that's just for that, but remember, we have other benefits that we have dental that's basically better than most dental. We have eyeglasses that are better, and plus we have little agreements in between that were negotiated over the years. And so I'm giving the benefit of the doubt. I'm saying 300 to 400 because I don't really know. So I'm saying that's my guess. Remember, these are my numbers, these are my guesses. Our premium equivalent is $1,600. I know my father pays $91 a month for his insurance, and it is possible that if we went to an Advantage plan, that the retirees would end up paying more of that share. because they'd have to purchase, I guess, their Medicaid, their Part B forms and stuff, and it might cost them more. And that's maybe something that we want to look at, because, I feel like this. Like, I know there's a controversy here in the city of Amsterdam. What I've said is, you made a promise to your retirees. I know we hit bad financial times, but you made a promise. Those people took less pay and they negotiated that. That was your promise. If you want to get tough going forward, that's called fair bargaining. If you want to say from now on people are going to pay 30% and that you can get that, God bless you. I understand why you're doing that. There's a big difference between unfair bargaining and bargaining in good faith. And so when you make a promise to somebody, we intend to keep it. One supervisor will not vote for my resolution that's coming up because it would nullify all the agreements. I believe that when the city and the county...
Well, time out. Agreements that no one authorized. I mean, these are government contracts, and if you're going to have a government contract, the governmental bodies need to approve those, or they're nothing. Now, I'm reading in the paper that after this last election, where there were some changes in the Board of Supervisors, and people like Stark and Shayera were suddenly on the board, replacing a couple of people who were more favorable to the trust people. Let's be honest. All of a sudden, the trust meets behind closed doors
Very quickly.
and throws in new contracts for periods of years, actually, right? Was one of them for 3 years or something?
Yeah, well, actually, the Benetech contract and Benetech management contracts are for 3 years, but they have no out clauses. So they're basically, they go on for perpetual. However, what's
Perpetuity.
In perpetuity.
I can never
That's
say
a Latin
that word.
phrase.
You see how smart my cousin is? You understand? Yeah. I have another cousin just as smart, that Tom Quackenbush. Yeah, I understand. I don't understand that. He's on the other side of the family. But all right, so let me address that.
Yeah, because
First of all,
it looks like it smells to high heaven when in December, before the new board takes over, you suddenly enter into these contracts, and the contracts are signed by somebody who doesn't have the authority to sign them, mainly Mr. DeMeza, without the approval of the Board of Supervisors, without the signature of the chairman of the Board of Supervisors, without the approval of the Common Council of the City of Amsterdam, without the signature of the mayor of the City of Amsterdam.
So you have.
And what I'm saying is those contracts don't exist.
It looks bad,
and it smells to high heaven. Yes.
But here's the truth behind that, and again,
particularly when you're reinforcing Mr. Bea's contract, whose son just got defeated in the election.
Well, you know that Tom DeMeza and I don't see eye to eye on a lot of different issues, but that doesn't make him not Tom DeMeza and make him a thief. Okay?
I didn't call him a thief.
So let me just explain.
You don't have to be a thief to be corrupt.
No. Why that looks bad to some, as I've unwound that, and here's the story. We have 5 years going on of what I call a failed experiment. All right, because you never got to where it should be. I personally think if we had an Article 44 trust and it was done correctly from the beginning, and they fully understood how they were at, and if you see, our trust attorney resigned yesterday.
Who's that?
Mr. Landon.
He resigned as what?
As attorney for the trust.
He resigned as attorney for the trust. Okay.
Yes, he was. So
he was drawing a salary for that.
I don't know.
Well, don't you think you should know?
Yeah, I should know. And I will know if my resolution passes, then I'll be the new trustee, one of the new trustees.
Okay.
And now it's clear we're going to have to getting a different attorney, and for that trust, one that actually knows trust.
Oh, okay.
And we'll start to unwind that a little bit more. But here's what I think actually happened. Not that I know of. No, not by us.
Oh, that's all.
I heard it yesterday. In fact, I probably shouldn't say it because I don't know it to be 100% true because I haven't talked to Doug, but I heard yesterday through another supervisor that indeed he resigned as the trust attorney, which is probably a really good move because obviously it was conflicted and he said so in the paper.
Yeah.
And
It's getting more and more conflicted as
but here's what I
on.
think actually happened. The trust went out for, they had a study done, and then they went out for RFP, and they had some suppliers come in, some vendors come in, and they agreed on a package that included the package that Benetech brought to them that has Blue Cross, Empire Blue Cross, that you have Delta Dental, you have Matrix RX, you have Davis Vision, which everybody uses, is actually the best vision around. You have the stop loss, you have the workers' comp, you have all these different agreements and third-party administrators, which is Benetech and Benetech Marketing. And it has fee schedules in it that I think that most of the supervisors outside of trust never looked at. And so Tom Quackenbush in July 1st got some documents, or was supposed to get some documents. It's unclear whether he got them or was supposed to get them. But as chairman of the board, was supposed to sign them. Well, from July, they had a big meeting in July, apparently in the 5-6 supervisors.
And again, this was before you were on the board.
Before I was on, this is what I'm getting, and they all got mad at each other for some reason. They all stormed out, and these contracts never got signed. So apparently there was a trust meeting in December, and Empire Blue and some of the other contractors said, hey, where's our contracts? They haven't been signed in 6 months. And I've only heard this is hearsay. Tom DeMezza said, just give me the things, I'll sign them. Now that doesn't sound like it was done behind like in a bad way. I think it was probably done more that I'm the chair, I'm frustrated. There's that resolution that says they can sign, they have some authority. So I think he overstepped his authority. I really do. But I don't think he overstepped his authority where he said, I'm going to do this and then the heck with everyone. I think he just did it out of frustration and signed it. So Bob's the attorney and I'm not. But,
if he doesn't have the authority to sign it, then it's null.
He might have apparent authority.
At that point, what you have is, I assume, some kind of holdover contract. Obviously, Blue Cross has been providing the services and everybody else. So you got some kind of holdover contract, but beyond that.
So all contracts have an out clause.
Yeah.
30, 60,
But all
90.
this stuff about extending things for 3 years, nobody's authorized that. Who had the authority to authorize it?
The trust, as it exists, might have the authority to say, we'll extend this, but somebody still had to sign it. And I believe that should have been the chairman. My position on it is, since it wasn't signed by July 1st, that according to these agreements, they have evergreen clauses in them, and we would continue on paying month to month until such time we gave notice.
Right.
Now, even though Benetech contracts, everybody raised their eyebrow that don't have they have expirations, but not out clauses. First year contract law is you have to give reasonable notice. They consider 60 days reasonable notice. So I'm saying none of the contracts were signed by the proper person. Therefore, they all expired on June 30th. And now, therefore, we're rolling over month to month, and we're paying the benefits, and everybody seems happy.
It seems to me, I don't know, it's been a while since I took first-year contracts, but it seems to me that the term of a contract is one of the essential elements of a contract.
Well, you have the essential element. There's the term of the contract that ended. We never did anything to end the contracts, so they're enforced. I think that...
But not in perpetuity.
not forever,
Yeah.
but they are, I guess they are, until you give notice. So I'm saying, look, they all expired. Now that we got the contracts and we opened them up, and there's fees in there that I think are a little bit high, and I think that we should look at the Advantage plan again. I believe that we're paying $660 a month for that is the cost equivalent, the premium equivalent, and I think it should be at least $250 a month less. And it doesn't, and it makes sense to get them out of that because the people over 65 are using the most drugs. So every time that they go to the drugstore and they put in a prescription, we get charged $2 per dispenser, which is very high. The norm is about half that, and in my plan it's 0 because we have 79, so we negotiated it out. There's also in there, because remember, we pay a fee for that contract for them to have the service, then we pay administrative services and a dispensing fee. So it's not like we just pay $10 for this, we also have the other charges. There's also a 4% on total claims. So if you have $2 million worth of drugs, there's an additional 4%. All right? Empire Blue Cross. I don't think they ever disclosed that Herkimer County is outside of
I was
their
just going to
norm.
ask you about Herkimer County.
So-
So we have a lot of
We have
people-
a lot of
people from
that
the
live
western end of the
western
county
end.
would be naturally, if they go to Little Falls
Or Bassett.
or whatever, or Bassett. yeah.
Or Bassett, which is closer to the MCM. So in a 6-month period, and I'm not making these numbers up, if you look at the 12/31/11 financial statement that was filed by the trust, their statement, in 6 months we had $1.9 million in claims for an additional $174,000 in administrative fees.
Hi, guys.
We had dental. That was we had $5,000 in administrative fees and $1,700 in claims. We had
What?
We had eyeglasses.
paper.
that
Wait a
had-
minute.
Yeah,
Say that again, because that's
Well, again, remember that I'm saying this. With the one that really affects me is we had $3,700 in administration fees and $350 in claims for eyeglasses. So, I'm not saying that was purposely put in, but it might be a flaw in the system that where we
certainly sounds like something that should be negotiated away.
Well, it might be something that we can get rid of the admin fee, and just when one of our employees have a claim for like $100, they could just send it to Richie Bay and he could cut him a check.
Yeah.
You know, because the other night we were arguing how we couldn't afford a copying machine for $5,000. We had to lease one, but in here, it's okay to blow $8,000 in fees in 6 months. So, given the questions that we have, I think it's appropriate to say, why would we sign this trust and sign these documents? We have conflicting resolutions that Tom DeMezza put up. One was to dissolve his resolution, him and Quacky put up, dissolve the trust, but all the contracts stay in place until the end. My resolution said, let's dissolve the trust, put in and cancel all the contracts and go out for bid. For instance, there's a strategic benefit trust.
But you were also, in fairness and in practicality, talking about extending the existing contracts till June, right?
No, because I feel that there's a timeline of how fast you can dissolve the trust,
Right.
put the things in, cancel the contracts with the 60, 90, 120 days. So in order to pass it this month, if we don't pass these resolutions this month, then I think that we'll be locked into the contracts for 2.5 years because the timeline doesn't fit, because you have meetings and finance committee meetings that you have to come back and forth, and there's time limits that you have to give the time limits, and therefore they'll extend after June 30th and going to roll over for at least one more year.
Yeah.
Thereby, if I'm right, and I think I'm right, that it's altogether there would be $500,000 a year savings. So if I get locked in for another year,
That's
we just
$500,000 you
and
lose.
250 this year.
Yeah.
Now we're looking at laying off 50 to 70 employees, and I know there's some people out there who go, "Wow, great," but what I don't think that a lot of people understand is there's not a department that you can walk in up there that there isn't somebody's relative that works there. All right, you know, these employees over time, and my uncle, same thing. His 3 of his brothers worked there, or 2 of his brothers worked there, and my father and my cousin did. Right? People in this county have always helped their other families, and so these people are friends, our neighbors, our relatives, and laying off 50 people. When you have a county like this, in 10 years, we have averaged 9.5% unemployment. That means there's no jobs here. So you want to lay off 50 people into an environment where there are no jobs, where we have to pay their unemployment because they don't have unemployment insurance. We pay it. This is like counterproductive to what you want.
And there really aren't a whole lot of departments where you can shave a lot of people comfortably without causing serious problems. Here and there, yeah. But
DPW is one of the larger ones. Social services is one of the largest ones. And I'll tell you what I found. Not last year, but the year before, supervisors looking to shave the budget, cut a position from social services that was 100% reimbursed between federal and state dollars. So did it make any difference? No. So they brought it back. Now, what I did is after I got elected, I went and met with almost every department head and sat with them for seveul hours and let them explain how they do it. And when I went to social services, the new guy up there is a really nice guy. He came and he showed me everybody's salary, and they have lines of how it's reimbursed, where it's reimbursed.
what a concept.
So if you're going to lay off in that department, you'll lay off in the departments that's costing you the most, not the least. So we don't do strategic layoffs. The other thing is, do we want to lay people off? That means loss of services. As soon as we lose services, I sponsored a resolution, co-sponsored by Tom DeMezza, to restore $8,000 in funding out of the $20,000 they cut for OFA, the Office for the Aging. Well, they had made cuts in their budget and had beat up some of their vendors to reduce their costs. And the city of Amsterdam uses 55% of the services that they have. Those are our constituents. And not only that, when you restore $8,000, it actually comes out because it's leveraged at 8 times. So we put up 84, they got 64. We had 72,000. I know the commissioner of DSS made a statement on the radio several months ago that they were the economic engine of the county, and he took a lot of beating over that. But if you really want to give him credit on that statement,
We must really be prospering then.
yeah, we have like $80 million all told come into our county every year through the social service system. And I'm not saying that should stay forever. It's just a consideration. When somebody says, sound bites are nice. Anybody can say we should get rid of all social services and people should work. Well, if you ended that tomorrow, you'd be in worse shape than you are in this county right now because there's nothing to replace it. If you lay off 50 jobs, there's nothing to replace it. And that's why I think that, but I will tell you on this, 5 years ago we had $20 million, and some of the supervisors, I tell them, hey, we're $6 million short for next year, and they look at me like, how did that happen? You mean we went through 20 million? Like they didn't have a part of it. I said, you knew, you were here, right? You voted on that. When you were giving away $4 million and $3 million. And so I guess I'm being kind of mistaken in the city here and in the papers and what I'm trying to do. I'm just saying, if you, Tom DeMezza said a statement the other day, he says, we worked very hard and wrung every dime of savings we could. That may or may not be true. He believes it to be true. I really think he does. I'm saying, If you really believe that to be true, and I'm saying,
You can save $200,000
I can save
here,
200.
$500,000 here.
and we're faced with $6 million shortfall and can't buy a $5,000 copier, wouldn't you want to take a shot? And then if you don't want to take a shot, and any supervisor that doesn't wanna and wants to defend these contracts and should stay for another 3 years, then it starts to get where it doesn't pass the smell test. And I'm saying that not for me, I'm saying that for the public. Because when somebody won't open up an idea and say, we're facing $6 million, we're out of money, we're almost, if this was a corporation or your own personal household, and you had $2 million in the bank and $6 million in
Upcoming liabilities.
you'd be getting hold of some attorney to file bankruptcy. That's where we are. That's not baloney. That's not trying to scare the taxpayer. This is where we are. We are on the verge of bankruptcy. And after this year, unless something dramatic happens, General Motors decides to put a plant here, sales tax triples.
Yeah, they'll probably put their Volt plant here.
You know, and you can see the effect of it. Again, I take criticism a lot of times as some people think any job's a good job. So all this development on Route 30 is terrific. Yeah, it's terrific because the tax base goes to the town of Amsterdam. But let's see what the new development did. All they did was go over and shoe store went to this one. Now that's vacant. And then when Kmart went out and went over there, that stayed vacant for 4 years because they had 4 years left on their lease. And they won't let their leases up because they'd rather pay $7,000 a month so nobody can compete against them. All right, you're not generating more income in sales
Just
tax
switching it from one side
because
to the
it's
other.
just, you know, it's like relocating Beach Nut to town Florida and giving them $110 million to do that. Or Hill and Marks from here to the town of Amsterdam. Again, I believe that we should do things like that, and we need to have incentives because we really need to have businesses here, and those are things that we should do. But we should do them smart. If you're going to do that, and you're going to have a company come here, and they're going to take my tax dollars, then we should at least say to them, you got to use some local people and local jobs, not a company out of North Carolina, so that 4 or 5 years later they're locked in a lawsuit over faulty workmanship and design flaws. All right, that $60,000 cost Beach Nut a couple of $1 million, and now they're locked in litigation. So it's just about being smarter in our county, and the resolutions that are coming up on Tuesday, and I'm one vote away. I need to have
Now,
one
what
vote.
exactly are the resolutions that are before the board at this point?
The resolution that I have up, I have several actually. The first resolution that's coming up is a decorum resolution, basically defining how we pick our seats, all right, and how we're going to address each other, all right.
Trying to bring a level of professionalism to the position.
Yeah, because when people are in the audience calling people's dummies and you should sit in the bathroom and swearing, all right, I don't think that's great. I'm all for that if you want to go before the meeting or after the meeting and go in that private room in the back and have it out, that's fine. But out in the front, in front of our constituents, we need to act, and that's why I wear a suit to every meeting. It's respect for the office. It's not because I have a lot of suits or I really want to look good. Well, that's both true. But you know.
So in the future we should expect you to be addressing each other as the honorable gentleman from Minden and the honorable.
Well, you know, again,
there's nothing wrong with that.
Standing up, you know, every time you speak is Robert's rules. Nobody follows that. I don't want to stand up unless there's something very important, very passionate.
Susie Sardonia used to
Then
do that.
I think that the supervisor at that time should elect to stand up. You know, it's respect. That's all it is for each other, and that way, and you shouldn't be addressing each other. You should be addressing the chair. So,
And of course, if you stand up, it's pretty clear who's got the floor too.
And the next resolution is a committee change, because apparently we have supervisors or heads of committees can't decide whether, because this is the only place I ever seen a committee meeting where everybody shows up to it, whether you're on the committee or not. So I've seen a guy that wasn't on my committee try to modify, amend my resolution, and he's not even on the committee and want to vote on it. So it was clear that we needed to have some process and relook at that. So we did, and we rewrote that. The next one is we usually wait until like September to start preparing our budgets. I have a resolution in preparing the budget director, the budget director, which is Sean Bowerman, that we pay him. He's the budget officer. Can't direct elected officials, but because he's my budget officer, I can. And our department heads to prepare a trial budget and return it by next month. Now there was some pushback at that, said there's not enough and all of that, but I believe there's enough time to get a reasonable budget, and I based it on this year's budget. I said, prepare a budget that keeps have a 0% increase in your budget. Tell me how many people that means you're going to have to cut. Then prepare another budget with a 3% reduction over this year. Tell me how many people that's going to cut. Because the truth of it is that while it sounds nice to stay within 2%, I believe that the county taxpayers, if they know what the devastation is going to be on the county, would say, I'm willing to pay 3%. Maybe not. But we actually have to look at other ways, whether it's the increase in sales tax has to be legitimate. I don't think there is an increase in sales tax, because while you get new businesses, it's the same business, right? And nobody's come running here to shop in our Kohl's when they have a Kohl's someplace else. Nobody will shop in our Super Walmart when if you take a map, you punch Walmart, within a 25-mile radius of each other, they overlap, and everybody's got a Super Walmart. We need to come up with unique stores and boutique stores where people want to come because they don't have that in their neighborhood. Putting a train station in a little town. When Schenectady's going to put a train station in, it's not going to increase the ridership here. What will change the county is getting rid of our bus system that would save $600,000 a year in the city. And going to a CDTA where you increase your mortgage recording tax by 0.5% and add it in, and now you at least connect jobs from here to Schenectady and Albany and Saratoga. And my son goes every day, can't take a bus from here to the Capitol in one shot to get there. I mean, this is ridiculous. They tell us what a great bus system we have. We don't have a great bus system. It might be great in its little.
Don't we have a bus that goes to the South Mall?
You have to go, and then you have to.
See how old I am? I just referred to it as. It probably hasn't been referred to as the South Mall since about 1963.
It doesn't go to the thing. You have to have your counties today need to be connected to where the jobs are. The jobs aren't here. They keep talking about global foundries. You may or may not know that I've negotiated every project agreement in Global Foundries. I'm there 3 times a week. I know all the players there. All right. It's hard to get there from here, but if you're going to hook the jobs up,
the mayor says it's easy to get there from here.
Well, again, that's all relative. That's your.
Come on, he's a city chairman. Leave him alone.
Well, that's your. You might say it's not. He might say it is. He might actually think that's good, and it's easy to get there, and we're going to get those jobs. I'm saying I work at that every day. I don't see that happening, and I think Bob knows this. 2 years ago, there was I'm on a board here, on a workforce investment board, and we're having a conversation with the president of the college, and says, "Have you been in touch with Global Foundries?" He says, "Oh, big Holland." Well, let me see what I could do. I called the vice president of the company. He happened to be a friend of mine. 2 weeks later, he came and we met with the Workforce Investment Board, And about 2 months later, FMCC, the city, the WIB board here in the city, in the Tri-County area, were in the consortium down in Albany. All right, because those are the things that we need to do to connect each other. You can't just think you're going to not have a connection. You're going to call somebody up and they're going to respond to you when they're running, with the President of the United States, and they're going to call you because you're from Montgomery County.
You're not going to come and knock on our door.
Well, you have to have a relationship, and in that case, I was fortunate to have that relationship that went way years before he became the vice president, all right, because he actually happened to be an international union leader for the glass molders and potterers,
And I know Jeff Stark, so now I've got a connection.
But going back to the trust, my thing says, let's dissolve the trust. Let's wind it up by June 30th. Let's disperse the the $600,000 that's in the fund. See how much of it's ours. Put it back in the.
Does any of that belong to the city of Amsterdam?
I think some of it does.
It must, right?
I think some of it does, but I would say the bulk of it is ours. I don't know how much, but let's say 60% of it's ours. That's close to $400,000. And I'm saying that if I'm right, and we can save $400,000 this year on the insurance, and $500 or $600 next year, and that's $1 million, and we set that aside, and we get $400,000 back. That's $1.4 million. I know the fund balance is $1.8 million. We're probably going to get back close to $1 million from some of our departments that didn't spend it all. So now we've got $2.8 million. $1.5 million, it starts adding up. Now we're only $2 million short.
But without the insurance reforms, it ain't going to happen.
Not for 2.5 more years. Yeah. And again, the numbers are formulated by me and people I've spoken with. I may not be right. And I said at the board meeting the other night, let's put it out. Let's not be scared. Let's do our fiduciary responsibility. Let's find out. If I'm wrong, I'll publicly apologize.
Who's on the board of the trust right now?
Just 2 new members. I think Isabel and Wisbicki from the city.
Yeah.
And I don't know who the union guy is. It might be Eddie Russo. It might not be. I don't know. I think we just got there. And then it's on our side is DeMeza and Barone are on there, and so I believe Vito. All right, but maybe it's not Vito. But those are the ones. So my resolution going up says appoint me, Stagliano, and Chiara. We've done, and it's not because we all get along either. It's because the 3 of us.
Nobody gets along with Michael.
No, I get along very well with Michael. He's very reasonable outside.
He used to come here, he'd insult us every week.
He's much different than it must be you that incites him. All right,
I excite him.
No, I think the 3 of you, just push him too far right. But other than that, I will say, much different than he's himself on the radio. Very intelligent, very thorough.
Well, wait a minute.
Very reasonable. Very reasonable. Much more than you. But I do think that my resolution also points the 3 of us because we've done the most research on it. And I think that we all agree how to end it. And the next resolution would be to nullify all the contracts, send out notifications to all of them saying we intend to end them June 30th, and that if we're going to send out for RFP and make a decision by July 1st. If we don't make the decision, we would continue on a month-to-month basis until such time we made our decision. It also lets our broker a record, in this case Patsy Baya. It directs him to go out to our current vendors and ask for repricing, all right? Which means that if he came back and they changed Medicare, made some adjustments, and they came in and they were low bidder, or even if they weren't low bidder, let's say they're within, $50,000. And the board of supervisors is comfortable because they've done business with these companies. They can choose what the best value is for the county. I'm not, people are going like, you're trying to oust Patsy. I'm not trying to out Patsy Bay. Patsy Bay has the lowest price or near lowest price with the vendors and gets the savings that we need. That's fine. If we go out to RFP and all the vendors that are currently there are the lowest, I'll apologize. But I don't see what I have to apologize for
Right.
if I'm trying to save,
No apology.
Frankly,
some
even
money.
if your resolution passes and you do what you say, it could be that over the next 6 months you look at this and say, yeah, maybe we were wrong and maybe we should have some kind of a trust arrangement here. And you're still within the authority to continue to do that.
All right, so we had a person come, Laura Blog, I think her name is, from Strategic Benefit Trust. CSEA Benefits spun off into a trust that they could invite other people.
I was going to ask you about that. All right,
And
go
it's
ahead.
basically it's not a 44 trust, it's a Taft-Hartley trust. But basically they get no administration fees. They do not recruit people. The union has to ask them to come in and do a presentation. They have in their charter where they can ask counties and other businesses, their municipal businesses, that, and all they have is this. They went to the best carriers around and they negotiated exclusive agreements with these vendors, and those vendors gave them, because they have about 3,000 members. And they're trying to, within the next couple of years, get as many as 25,000 more. So this trust actually could end up, say, in 5 years' time with 30,000. And after 2014, if the Obamacare, as everybody like to call them, stays in effect, you're going to see a dramatic shift in how the exchange. And it looks like, it hasn't saved the same money yet, but it does look like it's going to affect insurance dramatically in the cost. And I know my members pay $7.85 an hour right now for health insurance.
A what?
$7.85 an hour is our contribution
An hour.
in the construction industry. And I know some of the construction industries are $10 to $11 an hour.
That's $1,400 a month.
Yeah, that's $280.
But it works
$300 a
differently
week.
than public sector. Like we get a raise, our members get to vote. So let's say in order to keep the same benefits that we have in our insurance, I might say to my members, I need 30 cents an hour this year out of your raise. My members can say yes or no. They can say, no, I'm taking the whole raise in my pocket. I'm not giving you anything. And so then the trustees have to make a decision. Either they take it out of their fund balance and cover it for a year and try to make it up the next year when they don't need anything, or you modify the plan. So they're, instead of $20,
Or you hope
pay
nobody
30.
ever gets sick.
Or
$280 a week.
and we have greater
40 hour
flexibility, right? And we have greater
Yeah, that's
flexibility.
For insurance.
$750 a week.
It's what is it? It's almost 20% of our pay that we pay, and we're in a crisis. Everybody in the country is in a crisis. What healthcare costs. And remember, ours is slightly higher because we're seasonal workers, we're painters. So you don't work 2,080 hours a year like a full-time employee with paid holidays. You don't work today, you're sick, you don't get paid. You only work 1,680 average hours. The union painter only works less than 1,700. Some work full year, most don't. So the average is 1,700 hours. So that's based on how we get coverage to everybody under a plan. So look, it seems higher than it is, but it really isn't. But so you just got to look at each individual plans, and what we need to do here in the county is look at every savings there is. And when somebody says, I'm not doing that, then as much as I don't believe that, I think that the reason that we don't have good people all the time running is because of the abuse and conjecture they take. And that guy, why isn't he doing that? Oh, he must be on the take. You hear that, and then they go, why? You know, there's a big editorial in the Recorder a few months ago, and I don't respond to things like this because it's like calling into a radio show like Rush Limbaugh, right? You get 2 seconds, and then Rush hangs up and chops you up.
You wouldn't get that long with me.
Well, that's it, right? And then you chop you up because you have the forum.
We cut the phones out altogether.
Shut them out. So, you know, I wanted to think, but it was voter apathy. You know, he was moaning about the voter apathy in Amsterdam, and my thought was, gee, Charlie, what did the Recorder do to help that along? I was running. I'm not the best candidate in the world, but nobody put an article in on any of the candidates to say, well, this candidate has been a member of this community for so long, and he's done this and this and this, and reflect it in a positive light. It's always like, you know, when I was running before, somebody called up the radio show one day and wanted to, what's the group in New York City that was under investigation?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? With Bertha Lewis.
Acorn.
Tried to tie me to Acorn.
Through your working family parties.
Yeah, but
and the election fraud in Troy. You were involved in all that, weren't you?
Yeah. Oh yes, absolutely. You heard it here. I did the. I met Bertha Lewis once, probably 15 years ago. I don't know one person in New York State in that whole party that's an Acorn. It's not something I deal with. Do I know people in other labor? Yes, I do. Am I the most liberal guy on the face of the earth? In some things, I am. Right? And other things, I'm Grand Knight of the Knights of Columbus, right? So it's like you have to take things on an individual basis. And you know, building trades members tend to be a lot more conservative than
they're more pro-American.
sector
Yeah, I
users,
mean, you have an American flag on your thing, which is kind of
this is actually
kind of incompatible with
actually says
general nature of your party. But
this actually says we will never forget. This
That's
is
right.
a tribute to the members that we lost in the World Trade Center.
Right, I see the Twin Towers.
And you know, that was a very devastating time, and I knew 4 of the guys personally that were lost in there. And the next morning, after the attack at 3:30 in the morning, I was headed to New York City to assist in our recovery efforts for our members. So yeah, we tend to be more flag waving, you know, radicals that we are. But it's you know, just the basis. But here in the county, I think we need to go back to some
How often
basics.
does George Soros call you personally? Give you marching orders?
Never.
How is he involved in this?
Never,
this
ever.
insurance trust situation?
I don't even know who he is.
Lucky.
Oh yeah, I'm lucky. Yeah. See you later.
When you're talking about the insurance, it just shows how convoluted our system is that we have for health coverage, how complicated, and how much smoke and how many mirrors are involved in what's going on. Because having been on the Beaumont Trust for the school district, it is just incomprehensible that some of the things that go on in these organizations do. It's just truly bad money going after bad money that goes to somebody else's pocket, and the people who are contributing do not see a benefit, nor the people who are paying into it see a benefit on it.
Full disclosure here, sort of. I think I was actually a member of this trust when it first started as corporation counsel. I know I attended 1 or 2 early meetings as it was. And
So you started in its downward spiral.
yeah, and
Responsible.
I must say, I wasn't in favor of even doing it in the first place, but nobody asked my opinion about that. But once I sat there, at least I was able to review some of the proposed contracts and the out clauses and stuff. I said, well, wait a minute, you know, if the city's going to get into this, we're going to, you know, we need an out clause, and let's decide what that's going to be. So we had some discussions about that. Maybe I wasn't on the board. Maybe I was just participating as but I know I was at a meeting with all the people who were. So this whole subject glazes me over so quickly. I mean, I got 7 years of higher education. I'm not a stupid guy, but I've sat down with Patsy at length to talk about these things. I've sat down with other people who do what he does and get their opinion, their contrary opinions and things like that. It's
Well, here's the thing that,
what was it? Churchill's a mystery wrapped in an enigma and a cipher or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
well, here's how the broker business works. Is basically broker, you're a salesman that works on commission. So if I can get, $5 million worth of business placed with these companies in your county, and I'm the broker and I'm responsible for getting it there, I get a finder's fee. You don't really see that, but in some cases it can be 5 to 15% over the life of the contract.
Well, I guess it comes down to who is the broker working for? Is the broker working for you, or is the broker working for himself?
It depends. A broker can work two ways. They can work as your consultant on a paid fee basis where they work totally for you. Or they can work on an embedded commission and a finder's fee. Which in which case, under their ethics, they're supposed to still work for you to get you the lowest price. But by doing so, I guess this is the equilibrium theory.
Yeah.
They're supposed to do the best job for you.
Yeah.
And if they get that business there because they get you the lowest price, it's good for them too because they get commissions.
But they're going to get a commission on the higher price too, and they'll get a bigger commission.
Well, I look at it like this. This is the only place.
Right?
This is only place in any industry that you can basically get money back, like a kickback. And I don't want to use the word kickback, but I'm using it in this word to describe it. Because in my world, all right, if you're a non-union guy and you have the contract and you have a union guy and you don't have it, and I get that $1 million contract skidded over to you because you meet his price, and you said, "Wait, thanks, Jeff, give me $1 million. Here's $1,000." I'd go to prison, all right, because it's not.
Well, years ago, I'm sure the city had a consultant,
Yes,
an
please.
insurance consultant who got paid by the city, or didn't get, may not even have gotten paid by the city. I mean, I sort of think he was a volunteer who would review all these insurance contracts and advise the city administrator back when we had one.
But that was 20 years ago.
Oh, it was 40 years ago,
But now it's evolved.
Thank you.
That isn't how we do it.
Yeah, but I'm liking the way it's evolved here. Right?
Insurance was cheap then, and it wasn't as complicated, and there weren't other factors in that. And so, I always laugh at people. I won't pick on another radio show host, but every day they come up with something about the good old days.
Years ago.
The good old days. When when the river was polluted and people were dying of black lung disease. The good old days. It seems that we only always remember the good parts of the good old days.
That sounds like a song in a movie I was in once. Can it be that life was so simple then, or has time rewritten every line?
So that was,
If we had the chance to do it all again, tell me, would we? Could we?
And I got to tell you, when I remember back, I only have good days, my childhood, right? Growing up in Amsterdam, there were never any bad days. So I try to always look forward. And the situation is, this is where we're at in the county. We have $1.8 million left of surplus. This was 5 years ago, $22 million, when you guys were arguing on the air whether it should have went back to the taxpayers. All right? It seems that when we were well-heeled, there were some salaries, some positions that came out that probably paid a little bit more than they should have because we had money. And now we don't have money.
You know what?
And
but you're making my point that I made back then. if you have this, if you build up this huge surplus, you encourage them to do what you just said. Whereas if you give it back to the taxpayers, all of a sudden they're scraping for it like you are now. And frankly, that's where I want you to be.
Well, you know, the organization I have, we had several years ago $6 million in reserves. And some of my members would say, why do you have so much money? You could lower our rate, our dues. And I said, what happens when the day this ends? Well, the recession came.
Right. When you're not all contributing.
And the last
40
3
hours
years
a
in a
week.
row, our hours have been down 1 million hours per year. That's what it's been. We just negotiated a 20% cutback in wages in the city on project labor agreements. All right?
You're talking about the city, not this city.
The city, New York City. All right? That I helped negotiate those givebacks. We've been using our surplus to maintain the level of consistency of what we need to continue to get jobs and provide services. We've used $2 million in the last 3 years. If we had done what our members said and say you should only have $1 million or $2 million, we would have devastated that, because it's, regardless of whatever it is, we're still running some type of, it might not be a business, but it's got to be run in a business-like manner. We still have budgets, we still have expenses, and we have income, and we can't spend what we don't have.
Yeah.
So it's a.
But you also, there are provisions under the state finance law that allow you to have these, but the money should be set aside in specific funds. You should have a sinking fund for capital improvements that you're going to have every year. You got to buy a certain number of cars every year. All this stuff. There's a provision for exactly how much you can put in a tax stabilization fund. But when you just kind of
throw it in one pot,
it becomes nothing.
People get the impression it's a fund balance, not a fund balance.
For instance,
you brought up that bus system. That to me, that was the craziest thing in the world. We've been trying in the city to get rid of our bus system for years because it's such a drain. And then you go and put one in that is guaranteed to lose money. At one point, I figured out we were subsidized. It was costing $50 a rider just to pay the administrator's salary. There were so few riders compared to what the administrator was getting paid. It was $50 a ride to pay for the administrator.
And then you get 50 riders a day.
But the most important thing is, when you look at CD, one supervisor said to me, it's an authority, and we'll have a fiasco like MOSA. And I said, well, no, there are two different types of authorities. And CDTA, if you look at the record, know how to get federal grants. They know how to run their bus system. They alter their systems. You get a seat on the board.
But really, when you get right down to it, Jeff, let's talk. Throw away your. You're taking your orders from George Soros for a moment. At what point does it become ridiculous to be maintaining a transportation system if the combined federal, state, and local subsidies are X number of dollars? What's the X that says this is insane?
Well, I mean, that's kind of like an open-ended question.
Well, no, there is a point where it becomes insane.
You have to look at it, every expense. At this particular point, when you're an elected official, you need to look at every
if it's costing
expense.
if a person is paying say $1, I'm just making this up, $1 for a ride, and it's costing you $75 for every rider that use your system. Isn't that nuts?
It would be nuts if they're not going anyplace. So, for instance,
I'm sorry.
Right.
So you're assuming that they would not be able, under any circumstances, to get anywhere if you didn't have the system, and that's not true.
I'm just saying is that people always stop short of everything. So, we're going to have a bus ridership. The ridership is costing so much a ride, but the riders are actually going to a job that they might not have, and then they bring money back you know, you have to complete the dot. If the
I
riders are just
I
riding
understand
around
that.
town,
I'm just saying. At what point? Do you reach that point? And no one ever asks the question. That's the point I'm making.
And when you say in there, you know, look at state and federal grant, you know what? That's still money out of our pocket that we're subsidizing somebody else for. And it's not a free ride. It's not, oh, the state's going to pay for it. We're still paying for it. Or the feds will pay for it. No, we're still paying for it. And the less we allow government to be involved in our lives, the more likely we are to involve ourselves in our own lives.
When I was a kid, there was a lady in the neighborhood who, unfortunately, was often confined to the Utica Mental Hospital. Family didn't have a car. You know, they found a way to visit her in Utica every week. Mm-hmm. They found a way. When my father was working for the state, he used to ride with Paul Rossi. You know little Paul Rossi, right? Paul Rossi always had a brand new car. And it was always a nice big Chrysler or something. And he had his brand new car because he collected $5 a week from each of the 5 people that rode with him every day. And you know what? You didn't need somebody in Fonda figuring out how these 5 people are going to get to work every day.
My father did the same thing when we worked at the county. There's 4 guys.
When I worked at the GE, there were guys that got new cars every year because they're riders.
Virtually nobody using the city bus system is going to work.
Well, that's the.
You're right, and again, that's when it becomes ridiculous.
And then they run the They do run the commuter lines to Albany, and they lose money on them.
And they just got an okay from the state to run a bus from
now you correct
to the global foundries.
You correct me if I'm wrong, okay? And please correct me if I'm wrong,
right.
And say on food stamps, all right? That's a federal program.
Yeah, it is
reimbursed.
100%.
Does it bother people when they see people in the grocery market getting food?
Yeah.
I'll tell you, it doesn't bother me if somebody really needs it, but I'll tell you what really bothers me, all right, on that. And with the age of computers, we should we should be able to do this. I'm standing in line, getting ready to pay cash, and I really like Del Monte corn, but it tends to be pretty expensive.
It is. It's much more than the price chopper.
So I've got Hannaford or price chopper in my basket, 59 cents, and somebody has Del Monte at $1.09 with the gold card. As you guys, I'm only quoting you. I don't call it the gold card. You do. All right. I just think that the computer. I think when you swipe your card, and they're going through, if that's not the lowest in the store, then you shouldn't be able to buy it. All right. That's simple. And the computer tells you.
Buy generic.
So, sorry, it's not generic. I have to buy generic drugs. All right? When I swipe my card, they tell me, the dispense is written. Even my insurance says if the dispense is written, I have to send out and wait a month for my 90 days
you're right.
supply.
You're right. You should say, okay, we'll reimburse you up to the amount of the generic price. Otherwise you pay for it yourself.
Pay for yourself.
You're right. It wouldn't be that difficult. Of course, the whole system, now they're basically just credit cards. So
Because you don't want to embarrass anybody.
Yeah.
Well, there's something to be said to that. Somebody falls on hard time. One of you guys fall on hard times.
That's true.
Right? You never collected in your whole life. All of a sudden, I got to embarrass you. I mean, that's not right either. I mean, there's what gets me on the whole and the conservative thing, and I'm saying how conservative some people are, is they'll be the same people that are supposed to be Christians, and and they'll be talking bad, or this person should basically be electrocuted or something. That's where I have the disconnect with that. Is that
here's
this value?
Here's the disconnect. Here's the disconnect when you think it's Christian to help a poor person by taking the money from somebody who's not yourself.
Well, you used to do that in the old days when there was no support system. Somebody would come off the railroad tracks, and my grandmother would feed them.
Of course.
She did.
Your grandmother was a good Christian woman.
Or, somebody came by the restaurant when I had it that was down on their luck and needed a sandwich, they'd sweep the front of the restaurant.
How many people did Father Gully send over to you?
Quite a bit. Quite a bit. I was actually surprised how many people in a week's time that St. Mary's Church helped. And it was all done
on the QT.
Right.
You know, it's like just send him over. We'll take care of it. And I sometimes like try to take care of it. He wouldn't let me. He'd say it wasn't my duty. It was the church's duty to take care of people. And I always remember that. And, you know, great guy. I miss Father Gully.
Yeah.
Well, I got to actually go to work now.
Okay.
Unlike you retirees.
We'll throw you out then. And
Thank you, sir.
Supervisor Jeffrey
for
Stark of
having
the
me.
Second Ward,
Thanks for having me.
boss of the City Democratic
Mr. Stark,
Party.
say hi to young Vincent for
I
me.
will. I will.
Yes.
I'm glad he's on the right side.
Yeah.
I'm trying to
God bless
convert
him.
him.
God bless him.
See you later.
He's a member of the Federalist Society.
Yes, he is.
Jeff Stark. You know, say what you want about it. I'm glad I endorsed him every time he's run for office.
You know, he's a bright guy.
Yeah. Yeah, we may not agree on some things, but his heart is in it, and and he's smart. Despite how he's always telling you how stupid he is, he's a very smart guy, and he looks at things, and he gives you straight
He's
answers.
very enlightening.
Yep, yep. So
I didn't endorse him.
you didn't endorse him, no?
I didn't. But like I say, he's very, very enlightening and he's very knowledgeable.
Yeah, yeah. And since we can't have Michael come on the show anymore, we might as well have.
Best
All
part
right.
like we got.
We were going to do a 1 hour show in segments. Once Jeffrey gets started, I said hello, and then
That was the end of it.
that was an
Kinda like
hour,
the old Mike
hour
days.
and 20 minutes, or hour and a half actually.
When you put it on the air, you can cut it in half.
All right, so that cuts down the rest of the show. I guess I think I can. I'm only limited by what YouTube will accept in one move, and so far, I know they'll accept more than an hour. How much more, I don't know. I'll find out. All right, back to what we were talking about before, which was the where is downtown?
Yes.
Where is downtown?
I
Where
was
is downtown?
up in Saratoga.
A lady dropped this off for you a couple weeks ago, and I keep forgetting to give it to you.
Lady dropped it off for me? Wow. Wow, New York Yankees perfect games and no hitters. Don Larson's perfect game. Wow, this was Connie Hinkle.
Yes.
Connie Hinkle of the yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Wow. Oh, it's a recovered master. It's been restored with every pitch from the second batter to the top of the second inning. Now, Connie, I don't know if you know Connie. Connie Hinkle, but she used to work for me in Family Court in Fonda, and since retired. Matter of fact, she started looking to her retirement as soon as I got there. A lot of people did, as a matter of fact. But Connie was, I think, 13 years old, and her brother got her tickets for her first baseball game. She was ever her first professional baseball game. Didn't know anything about the game, didn't know what was going on. This is the game. It was Don Larson's perfect game. Was the first, and she didn't know what was. After a while, she started sensing, the anticipation of the crowd that something really special was happening. Imagine that. I mean, going to your first game as a kid, and it's
That's it.
It's like one of the most significant games ever played. Wow. So she was there when Yogi jumped into his arms. And
The Dodgers went down and lost the series here.
Fantastic. I mean, I'm assuming this is from her. I don't know who else would give this to me.
Downtown.
Downtown, where all the lights are bright.
I was in Saratoga Wednesday, sitting in Burger's Bagels.
Yeah.
Brugler's
Brugger's Bagels.
And my wife and I were sitting there watching the people walk up and down the street. I says, now this is what you call downtown, where people are walking up and
Right.
down the street, going into the stores, buying things.
Right.
I says, and they're all specialty shops, because just up the road a mile
Is
two
the
miles,
two malls.
you got two gigantic malls, but still the people are shopping downtown. I says, because these shops you cannot find in the mall. And most of them are semi-specialized or specialty.
And you got your restaurants, and you got a nice walkway. Frankly, it's
I came
it's
down.
inviting. You have the the outdoor seating in the restaurants.
I came down Main Street yesterday, and I almost couldn't go all the way down Main Street because the way they have the parking there is barely large enough to get a small car
Yeah.
down.
Yeah.
It's just not. It's not conducive to invite people to come down and shop and
No,
to
it
walk
isn't.
around.
It isn't.
There's no destination there.
No.
There's no place at the end that you can sit
And
down.
it's all chewed,
Well-
you know, and it is all chewed up. I mean,
But the destination
when-
is going to be the pedestrian bridge,
which you can't get to from there.
because the,
So if we have to build a railroad station, so you can build a walkway over the railroad to get to the railroad station, so you can get to downtown.
you know, they want to take what
Yeah, no, but I'm serious. I'm pretty sure that that's what the plan
That's
is from
what
what
it
I
is.
see from the pictures. But you know, in the olden days, years ago,
Back then,
downtown. Well, let's see. The way I described it to the reporter from the Recorder who asked me about it, I would say you could count the first. You could count from Market Street to Wall Street on Guy Park and Division, and maybe down to West Main as being downtown, because there were stores of one sort or another through there. Maybe not. Once you get off of Market Street, maybe not downtown, but certainly within the downtown retail district. Certainly, East Main Street from a little west of Market and Main to St. Mary's Church was formal downtown, where you'd had the men's clothing stores and the ladies' stores and Sears Roebuck and the Five and
Garden
Dimes,
City.
all those things, and a little bit up Church Street. But then it blended into your neighborhood retail with almost uninterrupted. You got the Columbian Community Center was past St. Mary's Church, and then by the time you get to Schuyler Street and the East Main Street School, you still had a line of stores that ran all the way to the end of the city.
and they were like neighborhood stores.
They were more neighborhood stores, neighborhood groceries. But then you have the Gigunda's Market, which was in the '60s the second biggest grocery store in the world.
Really?
Yes, floor space wise. Yes.
Way.
Yes. Yeah. The only bigger one was the Albany Public Market in Albany.
Really?
Because I don't know if Lou used to.
Yeah, there was.
He used to buy building after building
Building,
and then start incorporating them into the store. And then I guess if you counted his storage area, it was larger than Albany Public Market.
Oh, wow.
So, but that's how big it was. And now you can't hardly support a neighborhood grocery store in the East End.
No.
There isn't a grocery store in town,
And you hear people saying
or a market in town.
complaining that we need a grocery store in the city. Never happened.
Because it can't support it.
Can't support it.
No place.
And of course, Main Street has moved. Charlie Westfall, who used to be a longtime president of the Downtown Amsterdam Association, was one of the people who fought the mall, the location of the mall, chewing up Main Street and closing all the businesses to reopen them somewhere else. And we were discussing the grocery. He understood business. He understood retail business beautifully. And one of the things he pointed out to me is, you're only going to have so many grocery stores, because it doesn't matter how rich people get.
Only gonna buy.
If you're using the same number of people, they're only going to buy a certain amount of food. You may get a better quality, you may buy a better cut of meat when you get a little older, but you're still only going to buy one cut of meat. And so when a new market comes in, it provides a little competition, but overall, in the long run, it doesn't do anything for the community to increase the quality of life, other than one may be better than the other. But other kinds of retail, the more you make, the better it gets.
Yeah.
And we've obviously gone from having, in our lifetimes, and I'm not even counting Jim's exceptionally long lifetime, we've gone from having a lot of retail in Amsterdam to virtually none.
Yeah.
Virtually none. If we had to, if the city of Amsterdam went back to opting out on the sales tax and having our own sales tax like we used to,
Oh, it's,
We get nothing.
nothing.
You know, a few gas stations, and
Yeah.
there isn't a new car dealer in town anymore, is there?
No, they're all gone out of the city. Did you see the article in the paper 3 days ago on the pedestrian bridge in Poughkeepsie?
No.
Well, I saw one on the Tappan Zee Bridge. They're talking, and
That's a different one.
yeah, I know, but it was brought up in that context. Now they're talking about not tearing down the old Tappan Zee Bridge when they build the $6 billion new one,
You can make it a pedestrian
and
bridge.
make it a pedestrian greenway
greenway.
like the one in Poughkeepsie.
Well, the one in Poughkeepsie.
So go ahead.
The article said that they documented somehow 500,000 people a year visited that bridge, but they also said the majority of them were from the surrounding counties. So they said, and it also supported. I don't remember how many millions of dollars in extra businesses in the area.
You know, and I believe that to be a crock. Okay. How many more people are staying in the motel rooms because they're going to visit that bridge?
Yeah, who's going to walk over the bridge?
Come on.
It's
Another thing, you know,
that
back to the the downtown train station is moving to the next step. Apparently, the state is creating a liaison with the mayor to work out the details of this.
so when you go down to get on the train, you're going to go shopping first.
Well, this is my point. Some years ago, when after the train station downtown moved, it moved to the west end of the city, where it had not been before. And Lord, just take a look. There must have been dozens of businesses that sprang up because now the trains were coming to the west end, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we got a Stewart's.
Believe me, nobody's walking from the train station to Stewart's. Really? I mean, what? Nothing.
Absolutely nothing.
Absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. The few businesses that were there, they just got flooded out, and they had nothing to do with the trains.
But how would a train station draw businesses to that area? I mean,
You're backed up against nothing. There's nothing. It's not like it's in the middle of something. It's
you might get a coffee shop. You might get buy a coffee while
a
I'm
house
waiting for a train.
and a river. There's
But there
no
wouldn't.
flow.
But there wouldn't be enough people to justify opening a coffee shop if they're only dealing with the train personnel.
Well, I think they're going to build offices above the train station.
offices.
Excuse me. Let's go back to the demise of downtown. Okay, it actually went down in several fell swoops, not just one fell swoop. But one of the fell swoops was the Key Bank building. When I opened my office there, it was I remember distinctly. It was the day before my oldest was born. It was January 5, 1981. Right. I opened my office. She was born on the 6th. And I had a room on the top floor of the Key Bank building. And the Key Bank building was essentially full. There was maybe one or two other awkward offices like mine that were not easy to rent. But it was full. It was largely... There were a few good-sized law firms. The Salmon firm, for example, they were on the floor with me. They were a good active firm, but mostly you had like semi-retired attorneys, not like myself, unlike myself at the moment.
Johnny Mysak was there.
Well, Johnny was there; he was active. But Bill Carrero was in there. Frank Marticello, Tony Casellas, a lot of Bill Christian. A lot of the guys who were,
Worked when I wanted to.
just Don Roy. And there were some small insurance companies. Rocky McEwen was in there. There were a couple others. Kenny Kessler's accounting business. There was a beauty shop, and there were different things on every floor, but there was all small operations. nobody paying a particularly large amount of rent. I think at the time the Key Bank. The Key Bank had owned it, and I think at that point Vicinanzo had bought it from the Key Bank, and it was a nice deal. He was their attorney, and they didn't really want the building; they had foreclosed on it from somebody else. So, Vince got the building, and he collected the rents, and everybody was happy, right? Had a real live elevator operator. The steam came up in the pipes. Got a little hard to regulate, but it was what everybody wanted who was there, okay? I was not looking for the most expensive digs in town. I was just opening hanging my shingle for the first time. I had no income to speak of, so I couldn't afford much, and I didn't pay much. And neither did anybody else pay very much, but the place was full, so there were a lot of rents coming in every week. Along comes a guy from out of town who takes a look at this building and says, "Wow, this is a gold mine." And office space goes for a whole lot more than this, and these people are paying like nothing in rent. So this building is actually worth a lot if you know how to operate it right, instead of like that hick Vicinanzo. So I forget I think he paid $1 million for the building. Okay. Immediately, I was already out by that time, but he immediately raised the rents. Obviously, you would have to. When the Key Bank lease ran out, they were out of there. They merged with Bankers Trust and took over the old Montgomery Trust building. That was obviously a huge thing on the first floor. That never got rented out again. And gradually, all these semi-retired lawyers decided they were going to become retired lawyers if they were going to have to pay that kind of rent. And boom, 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 boom. The place emptied out. There was no more use for the elevator. The elevator closed. The building shut down. The guy lost his shirt. The bank foreclosed. The bank couldn't get rid of the money. And ultimately, the city foreclosed because the bank didn't bother paying the taxes on it because the building wasn't worth anything to them, emptied like that. And by this time, Salmon's got a nice new office up there. This one's moved over here. That one's moved over there. And there ain't nobody going to come back if you suddenly drop the rents. And then the boiler system goes, some radiators break, and next thing you know, the city's stuck with a white elephant and ends up selling it for what, $12,000 or something? Something like that.
11, I think. 10 or 11.
Yeah. With the loss of that building and all the people who were employed there, all the secretaries, all the lawyers, all the accountants,
Foot traffic.
now the foot traffic for the Topaz restaurant, for community pharmacy, for all these little niche things that still were alive downtown. That was the end. That was when downtown came to a complete halt. And I'll never forget. We're almost done. When the mall first opened, Tony, I was 30 years old. Tony Casellas is like 75, and Tony, he's like, I'll take it for coffee. So we go over to the mall for coffee, and every time we went over there, he looks around and he says, "This is gonna make a great city hall someday."
Ironically, that mall was a success for about 20 years.
Well, not that long. Not that long.
I think it was close to 20 years.
15.
No, because it opened in phase 2 didn't open until like 1980, 81, something like that. It was 1980. Because it was around the same time. It was the time I opened my office, the mall opened.
Yeah, you're right. I was thinking back probably. Yeah, and then most of those places disappeared right after that out of the mall.
All right.
You got some offices down there.
Yep.
Mortans went down there, and he lost his shirt.
Charlie Westfall told me that Holzheimer's, for example, would have to double their business to pay the new rent. That's how much new foot traffic they would need. And it never happened.
And each little piece contributes to foot traffic.
Right.
And when there's no pieces, there's nothing.
Right.
There's nothing.
Right. And by building it in stages, they tore down the thriving businesses and moved them all around town, and then tried to put the pieces back together. Never worked.
All the king's horses and all the king's men put downtown
I
together.
mean, it was a noble experiment with somebody else's money, and as usually these things go.
It wasn't somebody else's
I know.
money. It
I'm
was
just
our
saying.
money.
I know, but
It was our
that's the way they're looking. Look,
Yeah.
if we don't get it, somebody else will.
But it was no individual's money.
In 1971,
In a lump sum.
in 1971, between the transportation and urban renewal money coming into this town, it was something like $27 million. That was just 1 year of urban renewal. $27 million in 1971 money. Just think about that.
What do we got for it?
As somebody said, drive to Amsterdam if you want to see what 40 years of socialism will do to a community.
Yeah.
Yep. And with that, I think we should call it a close. They got anything coming up you need to tell us about?
Next Friday evening at the Scotia Glenville High School, the Scotia Glenville Pipe Band will be giving their spring concert.
Okay.
And come down with all the Gaelic music you'd like.
What
Admission it's 7 o'clock. Admission is free, but they ask for a donation.
They'll
come
get
down
one too.
and
7
have a
o'clock.
listen.
7 o'clock next Friday.
Next Friday, March 2nd. March already.
Wow.
Yesterday was, Wednesday was Ash Wednesday.
It was.
38 more days till Easter.
Well, that's not counting the Sundays, so the Sundays don't count.
They don't count as part of the 40?
Nope. Figure it out. Yeah. Well, while he's figuring that out, I'm Bob Going with Gavin Murdoch and Jim Nikosha, and we'll be back next week with more of The Show with No Name.